Paul was vastly outnumbered. He was in the minority, but that didn't prevent him from saying what he had to say. He said what he had to say. This is similar to the servant girl in Naaman's palace, in Naaman's house. Naaman, in 2 Kings chapter 5, Naaman was the commander of the armies of the king of Syria, and he had captured this little girl, and she was a servant for his wife. And when he had the skin disease, that little servant girl told his wife, "I wish the master would go to the prophet in Israel and meet Elisha and get healing." Just because she was in the minority didn't prevent her from speaking out. We may be the majority in church, but outside the church, we are in the minority. The catchphrase today is the word tolerance, right? To make things tolerant, we have to do so many different things. All of us are bent over backwards trying to be tolerant. Trying to make the culture tolerant. But tolerance is only for those who fit into a certain mold of thinking. If you don't fit into the cultural mold of thinking, you are not tolerant, and we will be intolerant to you. I mean, it's kind of ironical, but that's how it is. As a Christian, we should expect to be called intolerant. We should expect to be called phobic. We should expect to be called incompatible with culture. And let me give you two reasons why I think this is so. First is that the Christian faith is exclusive. In John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." You see, it is a very exclusive statement when Jesus says, "No one comes to the Father except through me." So as Christians, when we say, "No one comes to the Father except through Jesus," you see that is a very exclusive statement. Christianity, the Christian faith, is a very exclusive faith. And it's tempting to think, oh, we are the odd one out. Actually, we are not. If you look at any company, if you work at the DOD, for example, you are an employee of the DOD. That means there are other people that are not employees of the DOD. You see, there is an exclusivity with it. Any company, any college, anything, any entity has exclusive rules. You are either in it or out of it. If you go to a Hindu home, one of the central little rooms that they have is called a puja room. It's a prayer room. And many times I've thought, man, I wish Christians had a prayer room. Just a little tiny room somewhere in the house where we could just go and shut ourselves off and be in prayer. But Hindus have this prayer room where they have a ton of statues and pictures of gods and goddesses. And in many Hindu homes, in their prayer room, you may find a picture also of Jesus. They are okay with Jesus as being one of the gods. No problem. The issue is when you say Jesus is the only God and make it exclusive. That's when the problem arises. The second reason why we will be called intolerant and phobic and judgmental is because we have an opposite thinking. The teachings of Jesus were radical and completely opposite to the culture of that time. When he says, "Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you," that is completely counter to normal human thinking. When he talks about servant leadership and service first before honor, when he talks about suffering before glory, and then proceeds to exhibit it in the death and humiliation of the Son of God, it is completely countercultural. In Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 and 17, it reads, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit desires what is contrary to the flesh." It's not like the God is going north and we are going northeast. No, if God is going north, humans are going south. We are going opposite, not on a slight tangent away from God. What the flesh wants, what culture wants, goes diametrically opposite to what God wants. And so as a Christian, you will be outnumbered numerically and morally. And you will be called all kinds of names. intolerant, phobic, extreme, fundamentalist, incompatible. Matthew chapter 5 verse 11 reads, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Christians will be in the minority, numerically and morally. And yet, what I'm going to say next is completely counterintuitive. We need to find situations where we are in the minority. The tendency is to do the opposite, right? We want to be in the majority. If you're a Steelers fan in a world of Ravens fans, there's only so long you're going to hang around in that community. You're going to find a way to get out and be part of a Ravens nation. I suggest this morning that we need to be the minority in a majority non-Christian setting. George Barna, in one of his studies, found that a person who becomes a Christian, within 2 years of becoming a Christian, he loses all his non-Christian friends. And it's not because the non-Christian friends walked away. It's because the Christian walked away, because he was seeking more Christian engagement, and he left all his non-Christian friends and started engaging more in Christian circles. We are people that are sent out, right? We are sent out into the world. The church is sent out into the world. We don't expect the world to come into the church without us going out into the world. What this church does very well is going out into the culture, going out into the city, and engaging the city. But I'm also talking about us individually. How do we individually shine the light? If your light needs to shine in the darkness, that can't happen if all you do is congregate with other lights. Isn't it? Let me ask you a question. In what darkness is your light shining? Especially those who work in Christian settings, whether it's a Christian company or the church, you can be so involved in and around other Christians that you may not have any meaningful interaction with non-Christians at all. We will be outnumbered, yet that is where our light needs to shine.